before you long, but there is a passage of scripture that I like to lift this morning that I've been wrestling with for quite some time. It is found in Genesis, 32nd chapter, beginning at the 24th verse. And there is an ancient story that lies here. You have found it, say amen. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. How when he saw that he did not prevail against him, touched the sockets of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I will not leave you. Go unless you bless me." You may be seated. I want to talk about a fight for life. A fight for life. I'm often reminded as I study God's word, there are men who has the heroic image of great faith, great teachers, great writers, who God shows us in the simplicity of his word, they are flawed. I don't think you heard me. The great ones like Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, his father and grandfather, great men whom the scriptures lay reference to and gives us a clear indication how intentional God is in one's life. I'm amazed because there are times that I can look back over my life and I can see the things that has happened that has made me the person that I am. And I'm not saying to you that it was all good, but there is some things that God was intentional about in my life. And I find it here when I see the great heroes of faith who he gives account to. He lays it on us in a way that lets us know that we are not in this fight alone, but we are in a fight for our lives. Let's look at, just for a few moments, the life of Jacob. Jacob was a trickster. Jacob was a man who did things underhanded. He didn't believe in just having his way, but he wanted to make sure he got his way. And if you stood in the way of that, he will find a way to out-trick you. I was surprised to study this about Jacob because I had been hearing all along that Jacob was a great man of faith. But he has a lot going for him. But I don't care how great you are or how much you got going for you, there's something that is on the dark side of your life. And here in this text, Jacob finds himself afraid, frightened. He's afraid and frightened because something has happened in his past that perhaps maybe he didn't have too much to do about it, but there were some seeds that was planted in him from his grandfather Abraham and from his father Isaac. There was some stuff there that could have perhaps bloomed and blossomed to a great individual. And so he wrestled with these things that were against him and the things that he was afraid of, perhaps into his old age. It's something to be old and worrying about something that happened 50 years ago, or to worry about how you treat others. Because if you're a trickster, you think everybody else is out to trick you. And so you got to constantly stay on guard that you can be the chief trickster, that nobody can do it better than you. In Jacob's life, his mother can be somewhat to blame for some of the problems that he faced, because it was his mother who tricked Esau out of his birthrights. You got to be careful how you favor your children and how you place them against one another. Because the end may not be what you want it to be, or the journey may not have it the way you want it to go. And here, that trickery stayed in his DNA. Because somebody said chips don't fall far from the block. There's some stuff in all of us that we ain't had a responsibility in hand and put there, but it's there. Now, the brother that Jacob tricked, Esau, he made a vow to him that he was going to kill him. I can't imagine this. How there's only two boys, perhaps, that somewhat are twins, and yet they hate each other over something that has happened in the past. And because being back in that day, the birthright of an individual, of a son, was very important. But yet, God was intentional about Jacob's life. Jacob was afraid, and he got on the run. He moved out from the family house, and he went to a strange land. And there he met up with his father-in-law. His father-in-law was wealthy, had a lot of sheep and cattle and goats, and things that signified wealth and greatness of that day. And Jacob even tricked him and became a rich man himself. You got to be careful how you treat other folk. You can't just climb up somebody's back and expect your days to be prosperous and bright. Grandmama said, what goes around comes around. And here, Jacob, he went to work for his father-in-law, Lebanon. And so working for his father-in-law, he made this deal that if I work for you for 7 years, I want to marry Rachel. I want Rachel to be my wife. And so after he worked tall for 7 years in his trickery, watch this. Lebanon tricked him and gave him Leah. He didn't want Leah. Rachel was the apple of his eye. And so he had to work another 7 years, watch the trick, to get Rachel. And he didn't treat Leah right. He didn't treat her like a wife should have been treated, because his heart was always with Leah, with Rachel. He didn't treat her right. But God saw what he was doing. Even though Rachel was his heart, but Leah was the one God blessed. She had the sons, whereas Rachel was barren. My brothers and sisters, you might think you can out-trick God, but you can't. And Jacob had the idea he could out-trick God. Now listen. Don't y'all get hard on Jacob here. Because some of you try to trick him too. I've tried it. Let's be for real here before y'all go to sleep. I've tried it. I told him, said, Lord, if you do this for me, if you give me this and you let me have this, I'll do this for you. God don't have to do nothing for me. He don't have to do nothing for you. But if you woke up this morning, you ought to have enough sense to say thank you. And so, Jacob got in trouble with his father-in-law. His trickery caught up with him. It'll find you after a while. I got a grandmother who's been dead, I guess, 40 years. But her thoughts always come to mind. She said, son, if you make your bed hard, you got to lay in it. Y'all ever laid in a hard bed? So Jacob's father-in-law was fed up with his trickery, found out some of the things that he had done. Those two could no longer work together, lived in the same house together as father and father-in-law, son and father-in-law. And so God sent him to a place that he will be by himself. In fact, he sent him back to Bethel, where the promise was made to his grandfather. But he was really scared to go there because Esau heard where his whereabouts was. And then so hearing about his whereabouts, he sort of changed direction and he stayed in one place too long. He was so caught up in his own self, and tell you how he was, that he heard that his brother Esau had 500 horsemen that was on his way to get him. So what do trickery Jacob do? He splits his family up, his servants, and he sends one group off just in case Esau found them, that he would take care of them, and another group over here, if he found them, he would take care of them. And you know what? That trickster went last. After sending his father, his children and his wife and all of those who worked for him and served for him, he stayed behind then of his brother. Now, what man sends his children off to be slaughtered? What man sends his family off to be wiped out? What man sends his loved ones, his servants, those who have supported him to be no more? What kind of man is that? But watch God. God takes him to a lonely place where he's by himself. Tell me God won't get you by yourself. Tell your neighbor he'll do it. He takes Jacob to a lonely place, and Jacob is now dealing with nothing but his subconscious, the things that has happened in his past, and he knows what he has done that's going to endape his future. And he has an experience like none other. He has an experience of wrestling with a God. Some of y'all say angel. But the old writ says he wrestled with a man. Couldn't see his face. And Jacob grabbed the man and they wrestled in the ground. Wrestling with each other. Somebody said they wrestled all night long. Can you imagine? Wrestling physically in your weakness. Wrestling spiritual in your weak spiritual mind. Bad combination. Jacob wrestled with God. The man spoke to him and says, let me go. But he did something to remind him. This is how I know it was God. He touched Jacob's hip. In fact, the word said he pulled it out of socket. Now, because you're wrestling with God and God tells you to let him go, don't mean God is afraid of you. Or he's too weak to handle you because you're persistent or you're intentional. That doesn't mean that at all. Watch that now. There are some battles God lets you have because you know the big battle's going to come. And he knew that when the big battle comes, you're going to remember from what battle that you was in first. Here it is. He pulls that hip out of socket and he lets him go. But Jacob responded, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. I want you to know you can get in battles with God, but God will somehow bless you. He'll bless you even you may not think that you're being blessed. If this man had listened to all that he had been taught by his grandfather and his father, he would have been further down the road. He would never endure some of the battles that he had to face. Have you ever endured some battles that you don't think you can win? Have you ever been to a lonely place where nobody's there but you and your mind, and you don't think that you can overcome? You're battling with your mind and your heart. If you put your heart on the table and your mind over here, they will battle each other because you don't know what direction you want to go. That's a battle. And then my second point, God sometimes has to break us to get us to see where he's taking us. It doesn't mean that he wants to kill you or do you in. Because God don't have to kill you to make sure that you do what he wants you to do, because he got 10,000 over here waiting to bow. Some people say, well, I hadn't answered the call. The Lord made it clear he was going to kill me. No, I don't believe that. I believe that God got too many who wants to serve him. You ain't so important that God got to anoint you and put you aside that you special. No. It's a blessing that God sees something in you. You have to look back over your life. I look back over mine sometime, and mine's a mess. I said, well, you know what? My stuff might be smelling, but yours smell too. We get in some battles, we get in some tough battles of life, and sometimes we don't know which way to go or who to turn to, but God is still there. He's intentional about who he is with you. Not willing to let you go. And then lastly, when you get in your battles and you feel like you're broken, think about your blessings. Blessings just don't come because you're who you are. Blessings come because God has so deemed you to be blessed. I look around sometime and I say, am I worthy of the blessings that God has shared with me? Am I worthy to be blessed? Think about it sometime. Are you worthy to be blessed of all the stuff that you've been through, all the battles that you've fought, all the brokenness that you encounter? Are you worthy to be blessed? I was walking around about 2 weeks ago. I suffered with chronic high blood pressure. I was walking around with a blood pressure over 200. Why didn't I die? Why didn't I stroke out? I didn't waste time asking God why. You bless me. And I don't take for granted waking up in the morning. I don't take for granted of being able to put one foot before the other. I don't take for granted for having my voice. I don't take for granted of having my eyes. God bless me. Somebody say he'll bless you out of no way. When the hellhounds get on your trail, you can know if God is on your side or not because they won't catch you. He'll bless you, I tell you. And he'll bless you real good. Has he blessed you? Have you got anything to be thankful about? Has he opened some doors for you that you know was closed? Have he shed some light in some dark places that you might be able to see and walk in his favor? Has he blessed you? He's in the blessing business. Ain't nothing God can't do. Ain't nothing that's above my God. Oh, you can wrestle with him, and you might be wrestling for your life, but God is still in control. He knows your ups and your downs. He knows what you're all about. As I close, Jacob wrestled with God for his life. But when he got up, he found out he had a limp. Now, God could have pulled both of those hips out of John. But everywhere that Jacob walked, as he walks with that limp, he's going to be reminded that he had a wrestling encounter with God. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. If God is impacting your life through this ministry, join us in reaching others all over the world by investing today. You can give at grovechurchva.com/giving. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more messages like this one.